Most people think my work is just about face reading, but face reading is actually only one part of the map. Your face is not random. It reflects patterns. Patterns in how you process emotion, how you respond to stress, how you make decisions, what you've experienced, the ways life has shaped you over time. And unlike what most people think, your face is not fixed. We've all seen someone after a difficult period and felt like they've aged years overnight. And we've seen the opposite. Someone leaves a painful relationship, finds purpose, begins healing, starts living more congruently with themselves. And suddenly, there's light in their face again. Their eyes brighten, their features soften, their entire presence shifts. Not because that time has passed, but because of what they were living and processing internally. Your face is constantly responding to your inner world. And this is one of the reasons I find this work so profound. Most people are trained to look in the mirror and immediately focus on what's wrong, what needs to be fixed, what makes them feel insecure. But in face reading, those features often carry meaning. They're part of your own personal recipe. And when your emotional patterns shift, when your life changes, when you heal, your face often changes too. But your face is only about 50% of the blueprint. The other half comes from your birth date patterns through 5 elements and 9-star key. 9-star key is an ancient system based on cycles and patterns in nature. It's the science of recognizing patterns and their meanings. It looks at what was happening energetically on Earth when you were born and how that created your imprint. Your elemental nature affects how you think, process emotions, how you work, how you restore your energy, how you communicate, relate to other people, what environments support you, and the kinds of patterns you naturally tend to repeat throughout your life. People sometimes think this is astrology because it is adjacent, but it's actually very different. In astrology, there are 12 signs. In 9-star key, there are 81 different personality combinations, and that's before we begin looking at someone's face, life experiences, or conditioning. And even 2 people born on the exact same day will have different faces, because your face is the other half of the equation, shaped by everything you've lived, felt, and carried over time. When you combine your birth date patterns with the patterns showing up in your face, you get an incredibly individualized roadmap. What your superpowers are, what your kryptonite is, where you tend to go off course, and often the repeating cycles that keep showing up in your relationships, work, health, business, and emotional life. This is one of the reasons this work is still relatively little known in the West. It's incredibly nuanced. It takes years to study deeply because there are almost infinite combinations and layers to understanding someone accurately. But what makes this work so powerful to me is not that it's old, it's that it's practical. To me, this is really a form of personalized medicine, because no 2 people are the same. 2 people can experience the exact same situation completely differently depending on their personality patterns, emotional conditioning, and the way their face has evolved over time. This is why generalized advice often doesn't work. What restores one person may completely deplete another. What motivates one person can overwhelm another. What feels healing to you may feel deeply misaligned to someone else. This work explains why. And once you begin understanding your own personality, patterns, and design, you begin to understand other people more clearly, which changes everything. Your relationships, parenting, your business, leadership, your communication, even your sense of purpose. Because so much of life comes down to understanding how we work with other people, This work gives practical tools for change, not massive, complicated overhauls, but often very small, precise shifts that help you begin to alchemize the patterns that have kept you stuck. Sometimes it's understanding what energy is missing from your life, how you're working against your own nature, what emotional patterns you've been repeating for years without realizing it, or why you felt stuck trying to force yourself into a life that was never aligned with your own design. And I think one of the most healing parts of this work is that it helps people soften the judgment that they've carried about themselves for years. Because everything has two sides. Every strength has a challenge. The qualities that make someone highly sensitive may also make them deeply intuitive. The qualities that make someone analytical may also create overthinking. The qualities that make someone nurturing may also lead to overgiving. Nothing is inherently wrong. And I think it's important to say a lot of face reading available today has become very watered down or overly simplified, very focused on labeling or categorizing people instead of actually understanding them. Face reading is not about deciding whether someone is good or bad. It's about understanding patterns. And when you begin activating your personal alchemy, when you stop fighting yourself so aggressively and begin understanding your own design more clearly, change often starts happening much more naturally. That's why this work can be so deeply healing. Not because it tells people who they are, but because it helps people finally understand themselves differently. My specialty is breaking repeating life and business patterns. If you've tried everything else and still find yourself cycling through the same situations in relationships, work, health, finances, your emotional life, this work was designed for exactly this. Because when you understand your own blueprint and begin putting it into practical action, things start to shift in ways that nothing else quite can. Over the coming months here on YouTube, in future lives, and in my webinars, I'll be going much deeper into how face reading, 5 elements, 9-star key work together to help you understand yourself, break those repeating cycles, and begin living more congruently with who you actually are. If this resonates with you, subscribe and join me for a deeper conversation.